As I entered my apartment, my mind raced with worry about the tiny lives I had just found. Upon reaching inside, I quickly gathered towels, a heating pad, and anything else that might provide comfort. Those 4 kittens, barely alive, were all huddled together, their small bodies hardly moving. Each breath they took felt fragile, as if they were flickering flames struggling against the elements. Earlier, I had stumbled upon them in a quiet alley behind Dawson's bookstore. The chill of autumn hung in the air, saturated with the musty scent of old paper. It was an unassuming place, dimly lit by a flickering street lamp that cast eerie shadows on the cracked brick walls. Then I heard it, a faint, desperate sound that pulled at my attention. My heart raced as I discovered the source. Those 4 little kittens, trembling and scared, their eyes still tightly shut. They were truly alone, vulnerable in that frigid space, and my instinct immediately kicked in. Panic surged through me as I realized their situation. Had I arrived too late? It felt unbearable to think about the challenges they faced without their mother. They were so light in my hands, almost like a collection of leaves, and as I knelt down, I hesitated. What if my touch harmed them? Carefully, I tucked each one into my jacket, feeling their tiny claws grasp the fabric as they instinctively squirmed. In that moment, I dialed Mia's number without thinking. When she picked up, I rushed to explain, "I found newborn kittens. There's no sign of their mother." Her response was immediate and urgent. "Nathan, they need warmth. You must act fast." So I ran. I dashed through the alley, across the slick pavement, and past Mrs. Dawson, who was swept up in her chores. I couldn't stop to explain. There was no time. Back in my apartment, I wasted no time. I created a safe space for the kittens, placing soft towels in a sturdy cardboard box. It was dimly lit, with the soft murmur of the heater filling the silence as I worked quickly to give them a chance. They curled together, their tiny paws twitching, still too inexperienced to fully comprehend their circumstances. Would they survive the night? The thought lingered, but I held on to hope. The room was dimly lit, with a single lamp casting a warm glow over the work we were doing. It felt heavy with the weight of concern as we leaned closer to the tiny kittens nestled in soft towels. They were so small, their fragile bodies barely covered by their damp fur, which carried the sense of mildew and earth from the alley where they had been found. You could see their ribs gently rising and falling with each shallow breath, each one a reminder of their vulnerability. Just as I began to feel the gravity of the situation, Mia arrived. Her calm yet focused demeanor immediately signaled the seriousness of what we were facing. Without engaging in small talk, she knelt by the box, her eyes scanning each kitten for signs of distress. She checked for dehydration, gently pressing on their bellies and assessing their condition with practiced ease. Her worry mirrored my own. These kittens were in trouble, and the hours ahead would be crucial. As we worked together, the atmosphere filled with hushed voices and careful movements. I watched Mia pull out a small syringe filled with kitten formula. She tilted the head of the first kitten, coaxing a drop onto its lips. At first, there was silence, but then a small flicker of movement caught my eye, a tiny tongue reaching out in search of nourishment. It was a small victory, but one that offered a glimmer of hope amidst our concern. We took turns feeding them, slowly and patiently, realizing that every drop mattered. Some showed signs of life, albeit faintly, but then there was Ember, the smallest of the group. She lay still against the towel, her tiny form almost lost in the fabric. Mia gently tried to wake her, but the formula remained untouched. Panic rose within me as I witnessed Ember's unresponsive state. Each rise and fall of her breath was becoming less distinct, and a sense of dread settled in my chest. Mia's voice, though steady, conveyed an unspoken tension. "She's hypothermic. She doesn't have the energy to eat." There was no hesitation in her movements as she cradled Ember, wrapping them both in a thick blanket to share warmth. We were united in our effort, striving to give each kitten a fighting chance, holding on to the possibility that every bit of care would make a difference. The small apartment felt cocooned in a thick silence, the kind that settles in when a significant moment hangs in the air. It was early morning, and soft light seeped through the blinds, casting a gentle glow. 3 kittens nestled together, their tiny bodies warmed by a heating pad, and there was a glimmer of hope. They had managed to eat. But Ember lay motionless against Mia's collarbone. her breath barely discernible, and I couldn't shake the worry that gripped me. In the depths of that stillness, I sought reassurance from Mia, who gently traced circles on Ember's back. "We do what we can," she said, her voice a mix of softness and determination, "until there's nothing left to do." That simple promise hung in the air, a shared conviction that we were more than just passive observers. We were engaged in a fight for their survival. Fatigue tugged at me, yet sleep felt like an impossible indulgence. I could see Elliot on the couch, his arms crossed, uncertainty written across his face. Though he usually carried an air of confidence, he wore his worry openly tonight. Concerned, he asked, "What if she doesn't pull through?" His voice was cautious, as if too much volume might somehow beckon the truth he feared. For a moment, the weight of our situation pressed down on us all. This wasn't just about Ember. It was about the fragile lives that rested in our hands. It suddenly felt brutally clear. Not all kittens would make it through this night. Then the stillness was pierced by my phone buzzing sharply on the kitchen counter. Tension rose as I reached for it, my heart racing. Dawson's voice, usually warm and inviting, sounded charged with urgency. "Nathan, I think the mother cat came back." That news landed heavily, echoing in my chest like a stone hitting water. I turned away from them, gripping the phone tightly as I absorbed the sudden shift in our reality. I couldn't shake the unease settling in my mind. Just moments ago, I had been convinced that the little kittens I rescued were abandoned, alone in a cardboard box, devoid of hope. But then came the unexpected news. "You saw her?" I had asked, holding the phone tightly, bracing for what might come next. "Early this morning," she replied after a pause. "She was looking for them, Nathan." That revelation sent a jolt through me, as if the ground had shifted beneath my feet. Had I made a mistake in taking the kittens? What if their mother was searching for them? A wave of doubt washed over me. I thought I had saved them, but perhaps I had taken them away from their chance at survival. Mia noticed the change in my expression before I could form the words. "What's wrong?" she asked, her tired eyes locking onto mine. I hesitated, grappling with the thoughts swirling in my head. "The mother cat came back," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. A silence enveloped the room, heavy and thick, filled with unspoken questions. Elliot leaned closer, his fingers intertwined and a worried frown etched on his forehead. "Then we have to take them back, right? If she's looking for them, she's their best chance." Mia, cradling Ember against her, sighed softly. "Or maybe she left them for a reason. We don't know what might have happened while she was away." Her words hung in the air, casting a shadow of uncertainty over us. None of us knew the best course of action. Every option seemed fraught with risk, a stumble in the dark, and I could feel the pressure building inside me as I paced the apartment, torn between logic and instinct. In the corner, the kittens lay peacefully, their small bodies rising and falling in soothing rhythm as they slept, blissfully unaware of the turmoil around them. Outside, the city buzzed with life, but inside this cozy space, time felt heavy, filled with questions about what we should do next. Mia affectionately adjusted the blanket around Ember, her tender touch a reminder of the fragile lives we were holding in our hands. Would we return them, or find a way to keep them safe? The decision loomed over us, searching for clarity amidst the fog of uncertainty. The tension in the room was palpable as we contemplated the fate of the kittens. I crouched beside the box, carefully observing Ember. She lay there, her breathing shallow and faint, and I could feel a knot tighten in my chest. Would returning them to their mother mean a chance at survival for Ember, or would it lead to her rejection once more? Mia's voice broke the silence, steady yet revealing her worry. We can't just expect her to accept them back. If she turned them away once, what's to say she won't do it again? Her expression was difficult to read, but her underlying concern was clear. Elliot, clearly frustrated, ran a hand through his hair and let out a sharp breath. But what if she didn't reject them? What if she was just scared? Maybe she's out there looking for them. His thoughts hung in the air, stirring a sense of unease among us. As I turned back to the kittens, the room felt heavy with our uncertainty. Each glance we exchanged carried the weight of our dilemma, while the kittens remained snug and unaware, huddled together against the warmth of the towel. Their fur, damp from a night of fear, had begun to fluff up, a hopeful sign, except for Ember, whose life seemed to hang by a thread. I gave Ember a gentle touch, feeling the fragile beat of her heart beneath my fingers. The thought of returning them to the cold, to the possibility of losing her, made my stomach churn. It didn't feel right. Wasn't it fair to assume their mother was searching for them? Yet if she rejected them again, could Ember survive? Amidst my swirling thoughts, Mia seemed to sense my struggle. "You're getting attached," she said softly, and her words hit home. I had entered this situation as a rescuer, but now I felt a deeper connection. I found myself captivated by their soft fur, the faint sounds they made, and the urgency of Ember's shaky breaths. They had become more than just strays to me. They had turned into lives I felt I needed to protect. Elliot sighed deeply, rubbing the back of his neck. "So what's the call?" he asked, looking at us expectantly, urging us to make a decision. The discussion turned serious, and my mind raced. What should we do about the kittens? They had brought us so much joy, but also posed a heavy dilemma. As I looked at them nestled together, oblivious to the weight of our conversation, it became clear that our choices would define their future. Elliot's voice broke through my thoughts, bringing me back to reality. He leaned forward slightly, concern etched on his face. "I understand why you feel so connected to them. It's perfectly normal. But think about their mother. If she's out there, shouldn't she have a chance to find them again?" He spoke with a calm yet practical tone, reminding us to look beyond our emotional attachments. Mia paused, her hand gently stroking Ember's back. "What if she doesn't come back for them? If we send them out into the world and she rejects them again, especially Ember, they might not survive another night." Her concern was genuine, and as she spoke, it felt like the weight of her words pressed down on me. In those moments, I felt torn. On one hand, keeping the kittens felt selfish. Their lives were so fragile, and I worried whether I could truly care for them the way they needed. On the other hand, the thought of sending them back into an uncertain world, relying on a mother who had already abandoned them once, felt like a gamble I couldn't bear to take. I hesitated, glancing between Mia and Elliot as I tried to gather my thoughts. The decision wasn't just about the kittens anymore. It was about what I was willing to risk. Would I leave their fate to chance, or would I take action to protect them? The air felt thick, as if the weight of our discussion left little room to breathe. Outside, I could hear the sounds of traffic, a stark contrast to the stillness within the room. The kittens huddled together, oblivious to the dilemma before us, while Ember remained nestled against Mia, peaceful but vulnerable. Her tiny breaths seemed to echo the uncertainty we all faced. The stakes were higher than I'd ever anticipated. As I paced the room, my thoughts were tangled with doubt and guilt. The image of the kittens nestled together, so vulnerable and innocent, kept looping in my mind. Returning them to the cold alley felt unbearable. How could I walk away knowing they might not survive? Yet keeping them also terrified me. The weight of responsibility loomed over me, and I wasn't sure I was ready for it. Elliot sat forward, his frustration evident. "Letting feelings cloud your judgment isn't helping anyone," he said, gripping his knees tightly. "Their mother is out there. If we don't return them soon, we might complicate things even more." His voice was tense, but I could sense his uncertainty mingling with determination. How could we be sure that the mother would come back? Mia shook her head, her jaw set firmly. "What if she's already chosen to leave them? It's not easy for a mother cat to abandon her babies. There must have been a reason," she replied, her voice strong yet softer as she cradled Ember, the smallest kitten. "If we take them back now, we could end up losing them all. Ember can't survive another night. You know that." Mia's words struck a chord. I ran my fingers through my hair, feeling the pressure of the moment. Deep down, I recognized that I had already chosen a path, even if I hadn't voiced it yet. The thought of returning those kittens to their fate felt like a betrayal. The room fell silent, the tension palpable. It felt like too much to bear, and the uncertainty hung heavy in the air. Elliot let out a sharp breath. "We can't keep going in circles like this," he said finally. "If we decide to take them back, we need to do it soon, before it's too late." His frustration was evident, but I also heard the lingering doubt in his voice. Mia looked at me, her gaze searching. "You already know what you want," she said gently. You just haven't said it yet." Her words resonated within me. I swallowed hard, feeling the truth settle in. As soon as I had picked those kittens up from the pavement, feeling their tiny hearts beat against my hands, I realized I couldn't abandon them. I just had to find the courage to speak up and act on it. The days turned into a busy blur, filled with feeding schedules and late-night cuddles. Each moment brought a mix of joy and anxiety as I watched the kittens grow stronger. With every feeding, I felt a deeper connection to them, transitioning from a mere bystander to their caretaker. They weren't just abandoned kittens anymore. They were part of my life. It all began with a simple but significant declaration. "We're keeping them." I finally found the courage to say, the words rolling off my tongue like a long-held secret made public. As soon as I voiced my decision, I sensed a shift in the room. The air was thick with unspoken agreement. Elliot let out a slow breath, giving a slight shake of his head, while Mia nodded knowingly, as if she had expected this moment all along. The kittens, blissfully unaware of how much their fate had changed, stirred in their cozy nest. Ember, who had been nestled against Mia, breathed steadily, her warmth reassuring. This wasn't a triumph just yet, but it felt like a promise that she was still with us, fighting for her life. I sprang into action without another word, adjusting the heating pad set beneath their towels to ensure they felt cozy and safe. I gathered tiny bottles of formula, preparing for the next hours ahead. The doubt that had lingered about whether we had taken them away from their mother faded. Fate had delivered them into our care, and there was no turning back now. Looking up at Mia and Elliot, I said, "We're going to need a lot of supplies." Elliot chuckled, slightly incredulous. "I can't believe you're really doing this." His tone was light, filled with a hint of admiration rather than frustration. Mia smiled as she cradled Ember gently. "Welcome to rescue, Nathan." That moment shifted everything for me. I wasn't just a person who had stumbled upon a litter of kittens anymore. I had become their lifeline. As the days passed, each feeding was a careful balance of nurturing and worry. Every hour spent watching Ember struggle to gain her strength felt like a silent prayer for her survival. Then, a remarkable change occurred. The feeble mews that filled the air transformed into lively cries demanding food and warmth. Their once unsteady legs found newfound strength, fueling my hope and determination. Looking back, I can say those fragile lives became a source of purpose for me, reminding me daily of the resilience found in the smallest creatures. The journey had just begun, but each step forward brought them closer to thriving, and it filled me with a sense of fulfillment I hadn't anticipated. Rescue isn't merely about saving lives. It's a journey filled with uncertainty, choices made without guarantees, and the realization that even small creatures can profoundly influence our lives. When I first stumbled upon a litter of abandoned kittens, I never imagined the depth of connection that would unfold. Among them was Ember, the tiniest and weakest, who almost didn't make it. Watching her nestled with her siblings, her little chest rising and falling steadily, reminded me that she was here, fighting against all odds. As I stroked her soft fur and felt the warmth radiating from her tiny body, I came to understand that while I had stepped in to save them, they had, in turn, transformed my life. Leo was the first to open his eyes, his deep blue gaze reflecting innocent curiosity that tugged at my heartstrings. Marigold soon perked up as she recognized my voice, while Soot, initially shy and still, began to crawl towards his siblings, seeking comfort and warmth. I had entered this experience as a distant observer, but left feeling a sense of responsibility and connection. Each of these kittens, with their quirks and personalities, taught me valuable lessons about resilience and the quiet bonds we share with those who trust us with their lives. Have you ever thought about fostering or helping an animal? You don't need to be an expert. You simply need to care. Taking that leap can lead to unexpected joys and lessons. If this story resonates with you, consider liking, subscribing, and sharing. Awareness is key. We can collectively make a difference in the lives of animals in need. You never know how a surprise encounter might change your life as well.